What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you, and one that I would say we've been anticipating a bit just because their last album was just absolutely insane. We are going to go over the latest offering from Antichrist Siege Machine, Vengeance of Eternal Fire. This comes out on the 19th of April on Profound Lore Records. This band formed in 2016 in Richmond, Virginia. This is their third album overall. We got into them with their last album, Purifying Blade, which is just a vicious, disgusting album. And like describing this band's sound, like, man, all right. It's listed, at least in the archives, like black metal, death metal. I don't know if they say grindcore in there, but they probably should.
They should.
Maybe power violence, maybe war metal, which is like a thing. I don't know. Like I still am not entirely sure that's like a real genre or not, but I don't know. It's loud and fast.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would call this blackened grind. Maybe.
I don't know. I know that it is just flat out heavy. It is ugly. It is faster than hell, and it's just flat out primal. Like this is honestly like one of the most violent listens I think I've had this year, just in terms of like a constant barrage of blast beats and just disgusting guitars. And this band is just savage.
Starts off with the song Son of Man, and immediately it's just a violent shit fit. There's no really better way to describe it. And sonically, something I noticed right away, and it's kind of hard to escape. First of all, this is so dense. There is no room whatsoever for any other sound to really squeeze its way in here. And the cymbals, the guitar, and the vocals all match the same frequency.
And probably the bass, too. Like, it's a wall of noise. Like, this album has the atmosphere of being like on a factory floor while someone is blasting power violence to the PA. A lot of this is very blast beat driven. The riffs shift from like, grindcore downpicking to like death metal and black metal tremolos, and the level of distortion on the guitars, man, like it can be hard to even pick up the riff changes. It's just constant, and it's, again, suffocating. Like this band literally just jumps out from the first note and has its foot on your throat for the rest of the album, which is, luckily only 25 minutes, because man, like I don't know if I could have taken like another 5 minutes of like this level of intensity, because there's no breaks.
No, none. And we listen to some pretty intense music on the regular, but this has a more caustic, kind of disturbing, just overall noise to it.
Yeah, I've been listening to bands like Nails, Nauseum, like ferocious grindcore, Rotten Sound. Yep. Rotten Sound is a no-breaks band, but there are spaces in between stuff as far as like the mix to actually pick out like riffs and riff changes, and even like groove changes. Like there are spots of groove on every song in here, but it's generally for just a second, because most of the songs are pretty damn short. The opening track, Son of Man, is the longest track on the album, and it is just a scratch over 3 minutes. And while these songs are very primal and unrelenting, and that could also be used to describe the vocals are kind of hard to make out in terms of like, are they actually saying words? Because it's this like broken, muffled microphone sort of sound. I mean, it definitely adds to the atmosphere. It makes it more, unsettling, more maybe inhuman.
It's like the vocals are done like through a crappy PA speaker, and you're standing in the back of the venue, and so you really don't notice too much of what's going on. And like the way they sit in the mix, and like I was talking about earlier, the cymbals and the guitar and possibly the bass all being on the same frequency, like you can hear him growling, but as to make anything out, really, like I couldn't tell you what the man said. For all 10 songs, I couldn't tell you.
Honestly, it sounds like everything is sort of fighting for the same space in the mix. But I mean, fighting seems kind of natural for like this sound, because man, like this is just insanely heavy. And when it gets out of the blast beats and sort of breaks it up, like you can legit really hear how heavy it is. Like Piled Swine, Prey Upon Them, Vanquishing Spirit, and Scalding Enmity. These songs, while they are, again, blazing fast, loaded with just the most disgusting, primal, savage riffing, there's a little bit in them to sort of break up the kind of wall of blast beats and dissonance that is on here. Vanquishing Spirit and Prey Upon Them break it up a little bit with like some two-steps. And two-steps are always welcome in like extreme metal in general, I would say. There's a couple of dive bombs in there, which, I mean, you know, they're kind of hard to pick out. Like, I really had to listen to them. There's a couple of moments in here where there's like a little bit of like kind of a lead. I mean, it's, again, mostly just a dive bomb. But those sorts of moments really kind of helped break up the just a relentless pace of this album. So Sarah actually opens up with like probably the slowest groove on the entire album before launching headlong into blast beats and kind of just going full bore grind for the rest of the song. But like a lot of this is like very difficult to absorb.
Actually, Vanquishing Spirit 2 starts out actually more mid-tempo. I think that is the second slowest moment because that starts out mid-tempo, and most of the grooves, when you do catch them, are pretty much just like stomping moments. Like, as if the rest of the song wasn't a beatdown anyway. They're like, all right, we're going to further pummel you into the ground. Here's a nice beatdown breakdown.
And as far as like black metal being a part of it, I really don't get like a tremendous amount. Like, there's some tremolos on here that feel a little bit more cold and distant.
Yeah.
Abyssal Hate towards the end, like that one, I think has like kind of like a punky black metal sort of vibe. But I mean, it kind of comes down to like a lot of the riffs and how they're played. Like generally, again, it's like just like sharp down-picked riffs that are kind of broken up or tremolos. And again, with that like very staticky, kind of gnarly, muddy sound, it can be really hard to pick up the riff changes. In fact, like, you know, even the drums too. The drums are actually pretty clear in the mix. And man, this dude is just beating the hell out of them. Like, I'm reasonably sure all the instruments played on this album were either destroyed or in witness protection because they testified, you know, in a court of law for the abuse the band put them through. But, man, like, it's just so dimed and angry. But the thing I have trouble with is, like, even within the blasts, there are, like, subtle little shifts. Like, sometimes you'll have, like, a blast that's in one pattern and it will just rapidly shift to a faster one. And with all this noise behind it and feedback and just gristle and grossness, it can be really hard to make that up. Most of the transitions in here are just like short stop-start ones.
Yeah. And all the songs really shift about 1,000 times per song, which is even more crazy than it already is. And that was something I found hard to kind of grasp a hold of anyway. I mean, not that you can really grasp onto a whole lot of grind music, but like, even in the moments where you would start to grasp on things, it didn't matter because it was going to change. And then when you got into that, it didn't matter because it was going to change. And I was like, all right, guys, come on, you got to give me something to work with here.
I mean, to be fair, though, that's like most grindcore releases. But at least with like the production, like on like a lot of grindcore releases, you can still really hear that. All right, maybe minus like Reek of Putrefaction because you can't hear anything on that one.
That's fair, but that, I mean, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you get that working for you too. And I mean, I get it. Again, I'm a big grind fan, but like even in most grind, there's still moments to latch on to.
Yeah, and you know, even in a condensed song, you can probably do a little bit more, which makes me compare this maybe to war metal, which I'm not really a fan of. I don't even know if I really listen to it. Again, like the only band I can ever think of that is like flat out war metal that I listen to is Diocletian, but even in their songs, there's definitely more like dynamics, and it's not just, you know, a constant battering ram of just grindy riffs and noise. This, I feel like, you know, the whole idea behind it is to be as heavy and as savage as possible, but there's not like a tremendous amount of like, you know, nuance, like something subtle peppered in, like, you know, occasionally you get some like different dynamics where they break it up to like do a double time groove or something like that, but those moments are kind of few and far between.
Scalding Enmity definitely has, I think, some more dynamic moments in it. I mean, while it's grindy, you can hear all the riffs. There are some gross tremolos in there. There's a cool descending riff that happens towards the end of the song. It's even, albeit there's a lot of transitions, they're even decent transitions. Like, you can hear that song move.
Piled Swine, too, which that song title makes me think of that, you know, lady cop that was literally, like, banging all of the other cops. That was probably how it went. That's what they called it, like code Piled Swine. Maybe not. But that song is a little bit more dynamic. It has a really cool, like, chuggy opening with some cool turnovers, and it actually bookends it.
Yeah.
And it does move around a little bit and kind of get away from just blasting. Like, there's a constant, like, stomp groove where, like, he's literally hitting everything as hard as he can.
It's got some Misery Index moments.
Yeah. And there's some riffs in there that are really catchy, which is something that really stood out to me on Prey Upon Them. Like, that is probably the catchiest riff on this entire album, and it really stands out. And in no way does it sacrifice any of the brutality. Like, there's just like this catchy little tag at the end of the riff. It's a 2-step beat down. And yeah, it's vicious, but it's also memorable. Like, I would remember this album just for how exhaustingly just explosive it is. But in terms of like individual songs, it's a little bit harder for me to latch onto because a good chunk of them, they kind of repeat the same dynamics. Again, it's very primal, very minimalistic, but they don't necessarily jump out as much, which I feel is kind of a difference from the last one, because I listened to Purifying Blade quite a few times, and I feel like those songs kind of jumped out a little bit more. Like, yeah, they were savage, they were primal, ugly, vicious, all the adjectives I've already used, but I don't know, just the way they were set up a little bit more. Like, I drew more comparisons to Nails on that one, just because there were, like, you know, breakdowns, you know, like groovier sections, but it also brought that caustic, violent energy that this album clearly lives on.
This album exudes that.
Yeah,
that caustic energy. It just...
This machine is fueled by, like, blood and teeth and anger. And that's awesome, but, I mean... You know, a lot of this, like, it didn't stick with me as much as I would have liked, but at the same time, I appreciate the just outright viciousness of it. Like, this is just a fuck you to any fans of contemporary music, melody, beauty, or atmosphere. Like, yeah, this is just mean as hell. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I like it. I think it's good. I think they did a bit better on the last one. My issue mainly with it is production, just because, again, like, everyone feels like they're kind of fighting for the same space here. And the songs, well, again, I enjoy the outright intensity. Like, that is probably the main appeal in terms of listening to this band, is just their uncompromising nature. But some of the songs just aren't very memorable. Like, they're just a quick, blasty fit, and then you're on to the next one. The songs that actually had some, like, good riffs to them, that kind of varied it up, those are actually really solid. Yeah. But, you know, I feel like those moments are a little bit fewer on here. But overall, I mean, if you just want to listen to the heaviest thing that came out this week, probably, then definitely check this out. You know, definitely for fans of Nails, you know, just ferocious grindcore. Gadget. Yeah, we'll throw in Gadget too. Gadget's an awesome grindcore band. I haven't
listened to Gadget in a long time.
They are still amazing. But yeah, check this one out. It's a beast.
I'm going to go ahead and agree with Nick here. I'm going to give it 3 stars. It's heavy. It's definitely violent. The caustic atmosphere is what took it a little bit away from me, because I'm going to be honest, like, the first, like, at least 2 songs are so dense and so just jam-packed full of noise that's all it was just noise. And I will agree that the discernment between songs isn't necessarily there. There are some definitely cool moments. Like, there's a bunch of evil little tremolos that appear in at least 5 or 6 of these songs that are really cool, but they're not there long enough. There are a couple breakdowns that are decent. Like, there are a few good songs, but the majority of the record as a whole is just about being violent and angry and just crazy shit fits. And I like that about music. I like that especially about grindcore. That's what really grindcore is all about. But my initial argument of grindcore at least having some discernible moments in it, or at least having somewhat larger sections of either groove or breakdowns or something to separate everything, wasn't necessarily in this record as much. I do think Antichrist's last album is possibly a little bit at least more listenable, but overall this record is still pretty good. The drums are insane, dude. The riffs are insane because there's 32 million of them packed into a 25-minute record. It is definitely the heaviest record, yeah, like we said, that you'll probably hear this week. Maybe so far this year. I don't know, that's a bold statement. There's a lot of good shit out, but yeah, this record wasn't bad. I just thought it was so dense that it was more noisy at times than it was discernible music. Anyway, if you're a fan of crazy grindcore, definitely Nails, definitely Rotten Sound, definitely a myriad of just noisy, grindy bands, you're going to dig this. I'd still recommend checking it out.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there. It is also on our channel up in the banner in the bottom right-hand corner, but if you're looking for Thralls Metal stuff, you have to go to thrallsmetal.com. We have shirts, both old ones and new ones. The old ones are discounted, provided we have your size. And we even have hats, too, so if you're looking for any of that stuff, click the link down below.
And as always, tons of stuff going on at Thralls Metal. Album reviews, discography rankings. We'll get to Meshuggah sooner or later. Probably not this month or next month, as we're going to MDF at the end of next month, and that's going to be... I can't wait. Can't wait for MDF. But anyway, yeah, tons of stuff going on, tons of content. We're always doing something because you guys are always doing something. You guys are what makes Thralls of Metal as special as it is to us. Because without you guys, it's just two assholes in a basement talking to each other. Which we were going to do anyway, but, you know, the fact that you let us share that with you is pretty nifty.
I know, it says a lot about you guys, too. Like, again, you could be watching literally anything else. There's probably something on Netflix that's slightly more interesting than this. Who knows? But no, seriously, you guys absolutely roll. It's amazing doing this. And, yeah, tons of stuff in store for you. So one more big thank you because you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
And we will catch you later.